Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for sticking with me, for your comments and your engagement in my previous video where I talked about how to volunteer the right way. This video is like a continuation, or you can call it part 2 of the previous video, and it's going to be basing more on my personal experience. I want you to be encouraged and to know that it's not just all talks, and that the videos I make are not just to motivate you, but they are actually things that are possible, and it has happened for me, and I believe that it can also be replicated with the grace of God, of course, in your own life and in your career as well. So let's get right into it. So I started volunteering in 2019. I was working at the time as a front-end web developer in a tech hub in Aba, and in the hall we usually had like a bunch of events and programs that ran all through the year. So it was very easy for me to find, opportunities to volunteer. Like the opportunities to volunteer were very abundant once you're within that particular environment. So what I had to do was to think about what my strengths could be and what kind of role that I would like to play in this event. So initially I wasn't very keen on that. I mostly volunteered like anywhere. Like I could play LOC, I could play logistics. Sometimes I would volunteer as protocol for events speakers. But one thing that kept on happening was that sometimes when I attended these events, including events that I wasn't volunteering at, I usually liked to make posts and tweets about the conference. I used to talk about key takeaways for every single session that happened. So with that, I gradually started tilting towards social media, even though I was not a social media manager. So as you can see, I already covered the first 2 or 3 points that I made in my previous video. If you have not watched that video, I encourage you to go back and watch it, because I mentioned some of the key things that you need to know about volunteering and how to volunteer the right way. I think I mentioned about 5 to 6 points, and one of them was to know your motivation. So my motivation for volunteering for these events was basically because I wanted to contribute. I wanted to give back to the community, because on coming into tech in 2018, I realized how close-knitted the tech space can be and how community fuels it, right? And I wanted to give back. I wanted to, contribute a part of my skills, no matter how little it might be. My second motive for making the tweets and posts I used to make at events was to network with the speakers away from the event. So being an introvert, I am not particularly very good, especially at that time, at walking up to speakers and saying hello, I really enjoyed your session. But making those posts brought me like a step further, at least closer to those speakers, because I felt like when they are in their calmer environments and they are back from the hustles and bustles of the day, they may want to go back to their Twitter and check what people were talking about based on the event or based on their session. And most of the times they followed me back, or they replied to those posts that I made. So these were my motivations. And then I also talked about finding the right cause. I was new in tech at that time. I joined tech in 2018, and I wanted to volunteer for events that had to do with tech and women empowerment, women and youth empowerment mostly, because I'm a youth. I am still a youth. I think youths are till 35. So I am a youth, and I wanted to volunteer to anything that has to do with youth empowerment, women empowerment, and tech. That was where I wanted to volunteer. I also love to volunteer towards education. I did more of education volunteering in 2020 during the COVID-19. So as you can see, I have my motive. So I started volunteering in these capacities and, moved into social media, not like full-time or full-fledged or expert social media manager or anything like that, but I was really keen on it. I loved to do it. And I started doing it for a couple of events, managing social media, and up to the point where it began to open even bigger doors for me. And in 2019, by the end of 2019, I got an opportunity to volunteer as a social media manager for one of the largest open source communities in Africa. And all of this while I was in Aba. I wasn't closely acquainted with the creme de la creme of tech, who were mostly in Lagos at that time. I didn't, but volunteering opened that door for me to volunteer on even bigger platforms. I went in there, and of course, I had left my job at that time, so I had more availability as well to take up more volunteering roles. And I did this for Open Source Community Africa and continued. I actually told them I would like to continue because I am not fully engaged now. My availability is quite larger, so I can take up like more volunteering opportunities. So after volunteering for Open Source Community Africa, I had already applied previously to join She Code Africa for a different role. I don't know what motivated me to go for that role. I don't want to mention the name, but I had no strength in it, But that 2020, I was really trying to taste any waters I could find because I was, still rethinking my path as a front-end web developer, whether I really wanted to continue in that role or not. So I was willing to test so many waters. So I wasn't surprised when I got rejected. But then after volunteering for Open Source Community Africa, guess what? She Code Africa reached back to me and said, yeah, you couldn't get into this role, but we do have this other role that we think you suit perfectly in. Would you want to join our team? And at that time, this role, which is community management, I had no clue that it actually existed. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, I wasn't a community manager. I was a front-end web developer who had interest in teaching children how to code, and that was what I was doing between 2019 and 2020. But here was I joining a community of women in tech as a community manager, and of course I grabbed the opportunity with two hands because my interest, remember, lies within women empowerment, youth empowerment, education, and tech. So I joined them and I literally learned the fundamentals of everything I know about community management as a community manager at She Code Africa. And it wasn't until 1 year afterwards that I finally decided to pursue community management as a full-time career. And by June 2021, I got my first full-time role as a community manager in a US-based company, which was a very huge deal for me with amazing benefits, amazing pay, the job that literally changed my financial life. All of this wouldn't have happened if I had not set out that first foot to, volunteer. Through volunteering, I was able to come across a brand new skill set, learn the skill set on the job, test the waters on that skill set, make mistakes and learn on that skill set, get quantifiable results in that skill. As a community manager, I could have like vivid evidences of the growth within the community I had managed, which were things that potential employers were looking for. What is the growth that you've recorded? If I was not volunteering, there would be no data to show. And this is what volunteering did for me. And that is the reason why when I talk about volunteering, it is not just because I want to talk about volunteering. It's because I have seen how important it is to volunteer, and especially when you're volunteering strategically, when you're volunteering with clarity, because I know that volunteering is not just something you do to give back to the community, it's also something you do to give back to yourself as well, because there is a sense of fulfillment that you get when you know that the skill that you have is not just bringing you money, right? That it's really impacting life, and lives are being touched because you're doing this thing. As She Code Africa, we did a lot of amazing things. We did a lot of initiatives. It was so heartwarming to see, the number of impacts. We had programs that gave laptops to women, and you're in your corner, looking out, seeing your skill being part of something that is bigger than you. I may not be able to launch a women in tech community that has 40,000 women in tech, but I can contribute my skill and support an already existing scheme, right? You must not go ahead to open your own social impact project. You can join your reinforcement with an already existing community that is doing something that aligns with what you love, and then you use that opportunity to give back to the community. So I hope this is a sort of encouragement for you. If you're already volunteering, if you're thinking of volunteering, that volunteering is beneficial to both you, to the organization, and to the people, and you should go ahead and give it a shot in 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you're not yet subscribed, do well to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.